Hey guys, in this video I want to show how to add a aftermarket shock sensor to my 2021 Toyota Mirai's factory alarm, since it doesn't come with any kind of shock sensor. To do this, we need to add a special relay because the Mirai is special in that it makes a lot of different noises. There's pumps, valves, that type of thing that still move hydrogen and does all its things that it does for the car. And so those noises and vibrations will trigger the factory alarm or the shock sensor. So we have a special relay that we have to add, a time delay relay, which is adjustable, which is great, not too expensive. And this whole project probably would cost around less than $50 to add these components. And I will show you how this relay works. It's like a traditional Bosch style 12 volt relay, but it just has the added ability to have a timer in it. Okay, so the way this works is you have constant power here, and ground here. So 12 volts, ground, always on. What that does, these two, is just power up our little device, our little relay, and make sure it works. The second part is this switch 12 volt comes from the fuse panel as well as this one with the add a fuse. And what it does is it adds, when the car is on and power is flowing through, it goes from 86 to 87, which we don't have anything connected to. The moment we cut off the power, shut off the car, power cuts off of here, it waits whatever amount of time you set this delay timer to. Let's say it's 1 minute, and then after the 1 minute's over, it switches over to this leg, and power comes into this, and then we have the red wire from the shock sensor, and now it is activated. The shock sensor is now activated after the power on this has been deactivated. So here is where I go ahead, I start taking off all these panels one by one, just carefully. They all pry open, they pop off. At the same time, you got to be careful, use a door panel remover tool, plastic or something like that, to pry in there. And then this little rubber gasket that goes around, that kind of peels off. You just pull on it, and that way you can get the tool behind the plastic and start popping. Just that center pillar that I took off, and mainly what I'm trying to do is get at this little switch, the door switch right there, that basically triggers the alarm if it's open. So we're going to use that as our trigger for the shock sensor. So here I'm going to test the continuity of that white wire just to make sure that that clip has pierced the wire and that there's a connection, a clean connection. So take my voltmeter to continuity. One end I clip to the end of the white wire, and the other end I'm just probing that wire, and so I have continuity between where I probed and the end of the white wire, that white wire. So now I'm just cleaning things up, putting the switch back in, putting zip ties on, making sure all the wires are carefully aligned with that, what do you call that, cover. Anyways, just make sure that that wire won't get pinched or anything like that, and make sure it's out of the way, and I'll go ahead and start putting the panels back on. So here I'm showing my added fuses. One goes to constant power and one goes to switch power, and I'll put in the description as to which ones I pulled out to use that added fuse in, since it's kind of hard to see in the video. And also I wired up the shock sensor, which has 3 wires, a red, a black, and a blue. The black goes to ground, just tie that in with the other ground. Blue goes to the sensor, that white wire that you saw me pulling out from the door switch, and the red wire comes from the relay, from pin 85 that I showed you earlier. So that's how that all gets wired together. And then now I'm going to test it, but I need to close the door, so I just use that clamp to simulate that the door was closed. And I go ahead and I lock the car. So with the remote I locked it. I'm waiting because it takes a while for the alarm to trigger for a second. Once that light starts flashing, then you know the alarm's triggered or armed. the factory alarm is armed. And now it's flashing. And then I'll go ahead and trigger it, and you'll see winner, winner, chicken dinner. We now have an alarm that triggers from the alarm. So here I've zip tied. It recommends that you zip tie the sensor, the shock sensor, to a wire grommet. Any kind of, don't ever screw it straight onto the body panel. It's too sensitive. So they recommend you put it on a wire grommet. And the relay, I also tucked it up in there, and I hid that away. So that's how that all worked. The final step is to obviously fine-tune this whole thing and make sure that the delay is, this is probably the hardest, most trickiest part, only because you got to keep on trying things. But I think I left the timing at the maximum and turned the sensitivity down to like midway or something like that on the shock sensor. So here's some bonus video. I just took this video to try to test how these relays work, and so simulate that you just basically just turned on the car and turned it off really quickly. So there we go, and now the car is off and it's waiting. That green light means that it's now activated that relay. It's now off. The power is off on the car, so it's just sitting there waiting. What I'm trying to do is delay the alarm to arm, or the shock sensor itself. The alarm will activate on its own regardless, but the shock sensor will independently activate once this relay, that light turns off. And why I do that is because I'm trying to wait for the pumps and all that to try to go off and stuff, because it happens right after you shut the car off. I'm still trying to figure this out on fine-tuning this. It does false alarm like once every, I don't know, 2 months. And it usually happens when I open the car, strangely enough, and I rearm it. And this is like, I don't know, 30 minutes after I've armed the car. So something's going on, and I might just increase that delay even more, just so that the shock sensor doesn't arm for maybe 6 minutes. I think the maximum is around that range, so I think I'm going to turn that all the way out over to make it delay even further. And either that, or I'm going to have to reduce the sensitivity of the shock sensor. So that's basically it. It works really well. Like I said, I've only had a few false alarms, and it usually happens right when I'm walking away. So I'll probably be within range of the remote. So if I hear it going off, I can just turn it off right away. It's happened a few times, like in front of my home. But it's better than getting your wheels stolen. I know someone on the Mirai forum has had their wheels stolen. It actually saved me, because it actually went off. I was at Home Depot, and some guy hit a bunch of 2x4s in the side of my car, and I have some posts on the Mirai forum that show those little dents. The guy admitted to it and ended up fixing it with paintless dent remover, which worked really well. But anyways, I don't think the guy would have fessed up unless the alarm was going off. So hey, it saved me there. Thanks a lot, and hope it works out for you.